Picture a food stall, smoke rising, meat turning slowly over the coals. It's chicken, or beef, or maybe goat. Your mouth is already watering before you've even ordered. Now picture the exact same stall, same smoke, same fire, except this time, the meat on the skewer came from a vulture, or a hyena, or a crow. Something in you just recoiled, and you probably can't explain why. That reaction is the question for today. Humans have hunted, farmed, and eaten thousands of different animals throughout history. We are not squeamish people. We eat organs. We eat insects in some cultures. We eat things that would make other cultures gag. And yet, across every continent, every era, every civilization, there is one category of animal that almost nobody ever puts on a plate: the scavengers. It's not because they're rare. Vultures circle almost every open sky on Earth. Crows outnumber most songbirds in most cities. Hyenas have thrived across Africa for millions of years. The opportunity has always been there. So why did no cuisine ever form around them? The answer isn't superstition. It's not squeamishness for its own sake. It's biology, and it goes back further than you'd expect. Let's start with what a scavenger actually is. A scavenger doesn't hunt fresh, healthy prey the way a lion does. A scavenger specializes in something else entirely. It eats what is already dead, sometimes freshly dead, but very often it eats carcasses that have been sitting in the heat for hours or days, decomposing, swarming with bacteria that would put a human in a hospital bed. Think about what that means. Every meal a scavenger eats has already been colonized by decay, botulism, salmonella, anthrax spores, cholera bacteria. These are not rare contaminants for a scavenger. They are the everyday texture of its diet. So here's the obvious question. If scavengers are constantly eating things that would kill us, how are they not constantly dying? The answer is one of the strangest adaptations in the animal kingdom, and it lives inside a vulture's stomach. A vulture's stomach acid is roughly 100 times stronger than yours. Some measurements put the pH close to 0, acidic enough to dissolve bone, acidic enough to neutralize anthrax, cholera, and botulinum toxin before they ever reach the bloodstream. It is, essentially, a mobile chemical sterilization plant. Hyenas carry a similar advantage, along with an immune system tuned specifically to tolerate bacteria that would put most mammals into organ failure within a day. This is remarkable. But here's the part that matters for you. That defense system belongs to the scavenger. It does not transfer to whoever eats the scavenger afterward. When a vulture neutralizes a toxin in its gut, the threat is gone for the vulture. But the tissue of that vulture, the muscle, the fat, the organs, has spent a lifetime processing an extraordinary volume of pathogens and environmental toxins that a human digestive system was never built to handle. Heavy metals from contaminated carcasses, residual bacterial toxins that survive even extreme acidity, parasites specifically adapted to live in animals that eat dead flesh for a living. None of that simply disappears. It accumulates, the same way any chemical load accumulates in any animal over the years of its life. A cow eating grass in a controlled pasture carries almost none of this. A scavenger that has spent a decade processing roadkill, diseased livestock, and decomposing carcasses is a walking record of everything it has ever cleaned up after. You would not just be eating meat. You would be eating an archive of every pathogen that animal's body fought off and filed away. Now add the second piece, the one that isn't chemical at all, the one that lives in your head before it ever reaches your stomach. Psychologists have studied disgust for decades, and one of the strongest, most consistent findings is this: humans have an almost universal aversion to the idea of eating animals associated with decay and death. Not meat in general, specifically meat from animals whose entire existence revolves around consuming corpses. This aversion shows up in children too young to have been taught cultural rules. It shows up across societies with no historical contact with one another. It is not regional. It is not religious in origin, even though religions later built rules around it. It appears to be something closer to instinct. The evolutionary logic writes itself. Early humans who felt nothing about eating a scavenger occasionally ate an animal whose body was saturated with the same pathogens it had spent its life surviving. Some of them got sick, some of them didn't survive it. But the humans who felt an automatic, unexplainable resistance to the idea, who found scavenger meat repulsive before they understood any biology at all, avoided that risk entirely. They lived. They passed that instinct forward. You inherited it. That flicker of disgust you felt at the beginning of this video wasn't random. It was millions of years of selective pressure expressing itself in half a second. But here's the twist, because the rule isn't absolute. Humans do eat some animals that scavenge. Crabs and lobsters are scavengers. They will eat dead fish, decaying plant matter, almost anything on the ocean floor. Catfish are bottom feeders that will happily eat carrion when they find it. Certain species of crayfish, certain shellfish, even some farmed fish operate on the same opportunistic principle scavengers do. And humans eat all of them, constantly, without a second thought. So what makes these different from a vulture or a hyena? Scale and control. A lobster lives a few years, not a few decades. A farmed catfish eats a monitored, controlled diet, not decades of wild carrion. The chemical load never has time to build to dangerous levels, and in farmed environments, it barely builds at all. The exception isn't a contradiction. It's the same rule, just applied to an animal that never had the time or the opportunity to accumulate the danger. Which brings us back to the vulture on the skewer. It's not that scavenger meat is instantly lethal. People have, in extreme circumstances, eaten vulture, eaten hyena, eaten crow, and survived. But almost no culture ever built a tradition around it, because the math never worked in humanity's favor. High disease risk, high toxin accumulation, high parasite load, balanced against almost no nutritional advantage over the abundant, low-risk animals already available. Evolution ran that calculation for you, long before agriculture, long before written history, long before anyone understood what a pathogen even was. Every animal on your plate right now, whether it's chicken, beef, pork, or fish, sits low enough on this invisible ladder of risk that your ancestors could eat it safely, generation after generation, without ever knowing why it was safe. They just knew it felt right. And the animals that clean up after death, the ones that turn decay into their entire way of life, they were quietly filtered out of the human diet by millions of years of instinct doing math your conscious mind never had to do. Your disgust wasn't irrational. It was one of the oldest survival systems you own, working exactly as designed, and it's still running right now every single time you sit down to eat. So the next time something on a menu makes you flinch before you even know why, Trust it. That flinch has been right for longer than any recipe book has existed. You're not squeamish. You're not picky. You're carrying a survival manual written by every ancestor who ate carefully enough to have you. And it's still working, one meal at a time.